Hello and good evening. Welcome back to another episode of my Cosmic Campfire. Today we're covering a story that's a little bit different than the two we've covered before this one. Today's is, well, first of all, it's not a Pokemon creepypasta, it's Super Mario themed, because we're doing Blood Whistle, which is based around a modded copy of Super Mario Bros. 3 that doesn't actually exist. Additionally, it's sort of presenting itself in the form of blog posts by someone who does not exist about a game that does not exist. The mod, to be specific, of course, Super Mario Bros. 3 exists. It's all. I won't give any opinions about it before we've even started reading the story, but I will say that I am not fond in the slightest of the fact that the very second line of the story spoils the ending. Anyway, shall we get into it with June 5th, 2012. Okay, so it says here, a friend of mine recently sent me what he claims to be a scary Super Mario Bros. 3 hack that he wanted me to try out because he didn't have the courage. I started this blog to record my progress through the game. He got this from a site that's no longer active, and I've seen some pretty scary occurrences with emulator games before. Just look at Ben. All of that aside, however, there is something definitely off about this ROM. Its title was SMB3BW. Anyhow, I won't play any today, as I'm quite busy with college work and such, but I will definitely start tomorrow. June 6th, 2012. I played some of the game today. Obviously my friend was misinformed, as I have played all the way through Worlds 1 to 3 and have found nothing irregular. All of the sprites, levels, and sounds didn't have a flick to their name. Wait. A secret! That must be how you unlock it. I swear you guys, I'll find the warp whistle tomorrow and see what creepy secrets this game has to hide. Look for tomorrow's post and it won't disappoint. Maybe this will explain what the BW in the title stands for. June 7th, 2012. I wish I hadn't unlocked that secret. This game will be the bane of my existence. I'll try as best as I can to explain what happened and what will certainly entail. I don't know if any of you will believe me, but this sick mockery of one of my childhood favourites must be exploited and never be seen by the eyes of any other breathing man on God's green earth. And Todd, what I'll call my friend for the sake of privacy and possibly security, do not send that link to anyone else. You'll see why below. I entered the castle stage, knowing its only secret was the warp whistle. Wait a minute, so it was levels 1 to 3. Anyway, I disposed of a dry bones before donning a raccoon tail. With a running start, I was flying above the stage until I hit the secret area. My whole life before I hit up on my arrow keypad was completely different. I was happy. I was normal. I could wake up in the morning recognizing my own reflection, being absolute about my safety. Now it's lies, all lies. I know that as of what happened today, my life will become an infernal hell in which every day will be a futile struggle to retain my own sanity. After finishing this wretched collage of electronic dejection, I limp my deck like a long-lost lover with open arms. Now to get on with what had come to pass, what am I reading? I remembered it being weird, but I did not remember lines like, after finishing this wretched collage of electronic dejection, I will embrace death like a long-lost lover with open arms. About a modified Super Mario game. Let's continue. The blocks that lined the wall were a gloomy, albeit polished, obsidian black. Mario's skin now had a greyish tint to it, but that wasn't what was wrong with that picture. The music was a sped-up version of the normal bonus room theme. Hood's skull was cracked open and profusely bleeding, spilling blood onto the floor and making the room slippery like a night stage. His mouth was also agape and spewing blood onto the floor. The blood had an eerie, reflective quality that should have been graphically impossible for an 8-bit game like Mario 3. I walked up to him to see what it is that he might say. What he had to offer is this: Blood Whistle, hear its cry. I then ran towards the chest to see his contents. The chest was drenched in reflective. It's the hyper-realistic. Oh, it's not. Okay. The chest was drenched in reflective, realistic blood of the same type emanated by the orifices and exposed cranium of the poor little mushroom-headed fellow. How did this person expect any of this to be taken seriously? What? The reflective, realistic blood of the same type emanated by the orifices and exposed cranium of the little mushroom-headed fellow. Pressing onward, I ran through it to discover its dark secret. Its twisted surprise, I wasn't prepared for the following events. A blood-soaked warp whistle ominously rose from now what I believe to be the deepest crevice of hell. It blipped twice as the normal whistle would. That, my fellow reader, was the only normality of what I have played today. Played a deep tune that I can't get out of my head as I write this. The whistle descended, violently striking Mario in the chest. He unleashed a blood-curdling scream as it went into his back and out of his chest. This cry wasn't 8-bit at all. It wasn't even cartoonesque. It was the sound of unfiltered anguish, of utter agony. His expression reflected the same. To end my experience on this perverse version of something I once loved, Mario was transported to the warp zone of the blood whistle. I call it this because it only had the cookie-cutter outline of the quaint island. The water consisted solely of the same blood aforementioned in my encounter with the whistle. Corpses of Koopas and other enemies of Mario were scattered afloat near the shores. White menacing eyes glared at me between the waves, surfacing just to cast their evil glare at Mario. Or me, I can't be sure at this point. All of the worlds were indicated by their respective numbers, and all of the dots were crimson. At that point, I noticed yet another abnormality, this time concerning the dot for World 8. Beside it were two 8-bit patches of fire that twisted and contorted in place. Without me pressing any buttons, the whistle stabbed Mario in the ribs. This cued him to move to the World 2 dot. Refusing to pay any further attention to the horrors that shortly await in the distorted desert, I saved the game and quit. I have played more than enough of my fill for today. I guess that I figured out the acronym from the ROM title meant Blood Whistle the hard way. Despite the horrors that plague this abomination, I will continue to subject myself to this suffering for the sake of all of you. Well, also for mine. It'll help me keep track of the days, and maybe this desperate attempt to cling to my stable frame of mind won't prove to be in total vain. There are 5,000 people that have followed this blog in the 2 days that it's been up. After this pointedly interesting post, I'm hoping to have some more. For those of you following my posts, read tomorrow's and share with your friends. I need you to expose the stark luridness of this shell of something I once knew and loved. June 8th, 2012. Well, I did it! I managed to clench the fickle fibers of my perception of reality long enough to play through World 2. I have come to the conclusion that whoever made this is completely and utterly deranged. There's been a rusted gear or a broken spring in the mechanics of their sadistic mind. Their only purpose in creating this mod was to mentally and psychologically flagellate the naive soul poor enough to take the bait of its mysterious origin. While I'm certainly naive enough to fall into that category, I digress to the experience. I find myself asking how I could have missed major things like this yesterday when I saved the game in this world. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Blood of the same texture from before was just splattered across the desert sands as sand itself was. Solitary eyes watched me from the pyramids. Pentagrams and other satanic symbols were also infrequent in the environment. Could this hack be the work of the Illuminati? Okay, enough pondering. I need to finish this grim tale. Skeletons of Koopas littered the bleak landscape. There was a distinct disturbance with Mario's appearance though. He looked starved and parched, as one would typically look after a few days in the desert. Mario then moved into the 2-1 block without my command, and the music began to play shortly after. This was a reversed version of the overworld theme. How can you tell that it's a reverse version of the overworld theme and not just a weird creepy track? Anyway, whispers and other paranormal phenomena could be heard playing in harmony with the music, saying cryptic things. After about a minute, I began to record the sound. I'll upload it as soon as possible, but I know I definitely can't do it today. One of those distinct things I kept hearing was, "Let the whistle guide you," and "The instrument of blood plays the sweetest tune." It's creeped me out, needless to say, but all of these things wouldn't prevent me from playing out the remainder of this game. The stage itself was very scary. I'm going to stop doing the voice. It's starting to hurt my throat a little bit. The sky was greyish blue, accompanied by an almost white sun. The colours weren't bright or cheery in the slightest. The pyramid blocks were faded and cracked, and the wooden blocks were obviously rotting. Mario's sprite was visibly starving and pleading for thirst. Pleading for thirst? I don't think that means quite what they thought anyway. The fire creatures fixedly stared at me like a shark stares at a school of fish, seeming to know who their next meal was. The neutral expressions of the Koopas had changed into ones of converged disgust and loath. I had obtained the raccoon power-up by now, so I ran along the pipe-looking platform and took off. I flew for a little while, which was nice. Mario's face changed as well, becoming the normal happy smile you usually see throughout the entire game. I relished in the few moments of happiness I sought from this game. These moments were mercilessly ended in the course of a few seconds. The sky flashed a gloomy black before the blood whistle came and impaled the poor plumber yet again. Mario fell, his corpulent figure going limp, until he hit the ground with a thump that I swore I could feel. He was miraculously alive, his body twitching in a feeble attempt to rise. A fire creature jumped on Mario, who was now pinned to the ground and screaming in pain. His scream was bitterly realistic. It reeked of such ineffable pain, it now hurts me to describe the sheer degree of torture this character was put through. There he was, burning and seething in pain, and there I sat, completely powerless, forced to watch what I thought was the end of his trials on World 2. It was so wrong. The level select came into view. Whistle threw back, Mario was transported to one of the pyramid levels. When the level started, the background was an egregious smoke-filled black. Bursts of lightning filled the sky with illumination. Winged demons in flight were visible upon these strikes. Demons? Okay. Also in the sky glowed stagnantly lit pentagrams and 666. Mario was being carried by two of Bowser's sons up one of the game's pyramid structures. However, this particular structure was vastly different than the regular ones. The bricks were cracked and faded with age, the edges were jagged with dried blood and caked to each block. Nothing but a heavy drum beat and the sounds of thunder played in the background. Thunder didn't play in unison with lightning, as happens in most games. There was an eerily realistic pause between the flare of the lightning and the boom of the thunder. As the top of the structure was reached, I saw the worst thing yet. Bowser towered above everyone else, intimidating and terrible. Below stood four of his sons, two of which had carried Mario: Morton, Iggy, Ray, and Von Koopa. I think his name is Roy. Anyway, not Ray. Anyway, above the entire scene were the words "Blood Whistle" in bright red neon letters. Bowser's face had to have been 10 times more evil than I had ever seen it. His green shell was cracked, and his white spines had been dipped in blood. Blood was also fresh in his teeth, also as his serpentine tongue licked them, making clear his intentions on what to do with Mario after he disposed of him. It was then I came to a dooming realization. Okay. Mario can't die. The game won't let him. However many things are thrown at him, in however many ways he is brutally maimed, mortality will not escape him. For a time, that is. He will continue to be sustained by whatever dark force or sick mind that drives the rest of these occurrences to passing until the game's eventual end, in which he will ruefully and painfully perish. Now that has been said, to continue today's experience, suddenly Von Koopa produced a dagger. It gleamed with uncanny realism in the light of the blood whistle sign that loomed above. After a brief pause, he began to slice Mario's chest open. Mario again breathed that fearful cry, a cry that implied he would die only to endure the torture of 10 times the magnitude. Tears streamed down his face as Von removed his heart, still pumping. He handed it to Bowser, who ate it with a crunching chomp. His sons laughed as he did this, blood flowing from Mario's exposed abdomen. With a bark from their twisted father, the sons shamelessly began to regurgitate and tear apart what was open. As they were doing this, Mario slowly turned his head towards me and uttered a single question through tears and blood. Oh, why? I asked myself the very same question. Why would they treat him as an animal, if not less, for their amusement? Why would someone initiate the genesis of such a horrid contraption? A contraption in which life and death have no meaning and are manipulated. A contraption in which concepts such as morals, remorse, and mercy are completely foreign. It makes me shudder to think that there is someone sick enough out there to put a character through this kind of unbearable hell just to sit back and oh wow, are they really calling out the people who laughed at the story? Anyway, it makes me absolutely sick to my core. Oh, and that reminds me of another thing. You're probably wondering as to why I complacently talk about Mario as if he's a human being. A human who suffers pain, sorrow, depression, starvation, and thirst like the rest of us. A human who is also capable of feeling happiness, remorse, goodwill, and love like anyone else. It's because I am thoroughly convinced that he is. Please, don't stop following this blog because you think I'm insane. That will come later. I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, beside this game is a character with a complex range of emotions, someone who feels like you and me. But it's just a game, right? It's just a contrived mixture of code and data put together to represent words and images, correct? Wrong! I know with everything inside of me that Mario has to be alive. I have seen him truly happy and truly sad, and at one point I may even see him truly angry. He feels like any other living, breathing human being. I don't know how, I don't know why. I don't know how something so human could rise from something so truly inhuman. A character with a soul seemed completely impossible to me before I played this hack. I now have a goal with this game, to keep this poor creature safe. I suppose I now know the real truth. I'll see you all tomorrow, same place, same time. Hold on, let's see how... Okay. We're not even halfway through the story. Alright, I think I'm going to read the next blog entry and then take a break, because that should take us to about halfway through the tale. Seems like this is new because it's also our first two-parter. June 9th, 2012. It's me again. I had a horrible range of nightmares last night that are a direct result of playing this game. Some really weird stuff also went down. Before I get into today's gameplay, I'll have to go through them with you guys so I'll have an interactive record of my dreaming habits related to this game. I myself am having a hard time as to how they were so close to home, and what they mean for my seemingly inevitable downfall. Before I tell you this, I have to let you in on a piece of relevant information. In the 4th grade, I used to play the recorder. Every kid had to learn some musical skill, and I liked wind instruments because of their method of play, appearance, and sound. Such is the irony of the instrument that has caused me all this grief. In my dream, I was playing the instrument in the dark room. I was my 4th grade self, just coolly playing Mary Had a Little Lamb. Out of nowhere, I began to cough. I had choked on some blood that had materialized within and around my recorder. I covered it, and soon filled it. Blood began to pour in great quantity out of all the recorder's holes. It soon began to float in midair and to hover. A few seconds later, it struck me in the chest. A few seconds passed, and then it struck me in the chest. It had impaled me, going directly through my heart and every other vital artery one could think of. I woke up, the sheets plastered to my bare chest with sweat. I was completely fine, not a scratch on me. As I sat there in bed, afraid of how I'm sure the game did this, or maybe it was just me losing my sanity, I began to hear noise coming from my laptop. It was closed, but a faint muffled humming sound was clearly audible. I warily approached my computer, the machine looking almost alive. I then opened it up. It was a picture of a Super Mario Bros. 3 Raccoon Mario sprite on a black backdrop. He was chained up by his legs and feet, and all the chains reached outside of the screen. The blood whistle sat as the centerpiece of it all through Mario's chest. That tune of the blood whistle played over and over, a loop that only exacerbated the sound within the walls of my psyche. I tried exiting out of whatever this program might have been, but the window wouldn't close. I eventually had to take out my laptop battery, which didn't sit too well with my operating system. Luckily, I didn't lose any files. Now, for the gameplay. I was on a weak imitation of the World 3 level map. The water was none other than blood. Ravenous fish jumped out of the water, looks of primal hunger on their faces. There was something off about Mario's map representation that I noticed right away. Along with his raccoon tail, the blood whistle was now a permanent fixture through his body. His skin had dulled a little from his prior shade of grey, now more outwardly noticeable. His mustache had dots of red clung to it as well. Without my, or Mario's control, needless to say, I was moved to the first underwater stage. A cherry red tint absorbs the entire screen. This was to be expected, as the water looks blood-ridden from the outside as well. I swam down the left side of the level to get a fire mushroom. What do you mean fire mushroom? Isn't a fire flower? As soon as Mario got it and his outfit changed, he got an evil simper on his face. He looked at me and said, "Revenge, yes?" I confirmed his suspicions, and then we set off for the danger that lurked near. The fish cast malevolent gazes at Mario as he swam by, incinerating them. His normal, happy smile returned. So did mine. The annihilation of the carnivorous critter didn't last long before Mario and I faced a hellish dilemma. There was a large fish with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Below him were two power-up blocks, one black-looking and one purple-looking. I assumed that these were supposed to mean red and blue. Obviously, there's no progress from this point without finding out what these blocks had in store. Mario's expression changed into its gaunt appearance that he has had for the majority of the game. Knowing that I had no other choice, I dauntingly hit the block that was black in appearance on the left. The fish swam around from its position on top of us and began to tear off Mario's limbs. By this time, a group of fish had congregated around the entire scene. Their laughs were deep and short, registering as barks for the 8-bit sound processor. Mario's unable body wobbled to see blood out, spewing black across the red. When he finally died, the big fish began to laugh. After a couple of seconds, Mario's limbs regrew, hit the blue block to get everything over with. Bubbles stopped coming from Mario's mouth. He cried out for help, that only made the problem worse. He sucked in tons of water, his hands around his neck. His face began to grow for... Okay, so basically Mario drowns, and as he fights he starts fighting the fish, but more of them keep appearing. After a while, he just gave up. I watched as Mario uttered his last gurgle on World 3, the blood whistle stabbing and taking him away. I saved and quit with haste. See you all tomorrow. I think see you all tomorrow is the first intelligent thing that the main character of this story has said. Because I need a break. We've been here for 20 minutes and we're barely halfway through. Let me check my page. Let me check the page. Yeah, we're about halfway through and I've been here for about 22.5 minutes. So I'm going to take a break. I need the break. So yeah, this is our first two-parter. What a celebration.